Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Spare, Leak Project, how the heck are you? Just have to hit a couple more buttons here before we get started. Appreciate you joining me this quick edition. Your time is valuable. As a matter of fact, it's priceless. Just let me hit a button here real quick. All right, rock and roll. Was there a deal made with the devil in Heath Ledger's last film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus? Or was it done long before then? Or maybe he didn't even know. Maybe he was actually the sacrificial lamb without even realizing it before birth. I'm sure you've heard of the 27 Club. Many people that were at the peak of their entertainment career died at the age of 27. And a lot of people around the age of 27. Did you know that there is a cycle of Saturn, which is approximately 27 years? It actually might be 29.5 years, but there is a 27-year time frame that it takes for Saturn to do a full orbit. So let's say you were born 70 years ago. Well, Saturn, during that 70 years, over twice, it will have gotten to the point of when you were born. So the same location. So that's the return of Saturn. I'll talk to Heidi about this later. Heidi Vandenberg. She's very detailed in like her Vedic stuff that she does. But really, it's fascinating when you look at some of these people that died at the age of 27, at the peak of their career. Heath Ledger just came off of a blockbuster film, Batman, incredible, mind-blowing. He played the Joker better than even Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson did an amazing job playing the Joker. Now, that's just my opinion. But he played it almost too well. And the Joker, as you can see behind me in the Suicide Squad, there's a lot of mysticism and, yeah, bless his soul. Bless your soul, Heath Ledger. There's a lot of mysticism and the representation of the Joker, the trickster. The trickster in the, if you get into Norway and some of the, I should say more of the Viking type era out there, the different gods, Enki, Loki was the trickster god. Loki is the Joker a representation of Loki, Enki? I don't know, that's kind of a stretch there. But here's what isn't a stretch. Let me share with you a little bit of information about this recent, I mean, it's a few years old. It's not too recent, but Dr. Parnassus includes a sleight of hand expert, Anton, confident Percy, and Parnassus' daughter, Valentine, performs outside a London pub. So essentially what happens is the main character, one of the main characters, ends up selling his daughter to the devil. And guess what the devil's name is? The devil's name is Mr. Nick. Reminds me of Saint Nick. It reminds me of Santa, Satan. I mean, just a couple of letters there mixed up a little bit. Think about it. Santa going through windows at night and knowing if you've been bad or good, and coming in with, full-on red robe, having elves making toys in the North Pole. It's just kind of strange, man. I'm just saying. But anyway, don't get mad at me. Conspiracy theorist. So what I know isn't a conspiracy, though, is let me read to you some of the names of those that died at a very young age during the peak of their career. Let's go here. And in a minute, I'm going to get to the satanic sacrifice in Sin City that Robert Stanley put a great article together on his website, Unicus Magazine. He's going to come back on the show here soon. Last time he was on the show, I was in rare form, so I'm going to give him more room to talk and speak his mind. But great article when he connects some of the occult mysticism and the Lucifer Matrix with Paddock and the Patsy and the event, the MK Ultra, who Paddock's father was, on the America's Most Wanted list. Very bizarre connections. And then he gets into the Luxor, which is very close to where the shootings took place and what it stands for. We'll get to that here shortly. But let's go back to this film. Let me go back to this film here, and I've got notes. Okay, so 27 Club. Who do we have? Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Linda Jones, Leslie Harvey, Ron McMurrin, Roger Lee Durham. So who else? Well, Kurt Cobain. And Heath Ledger was 28. He wasn't 27. But let me get into, you guys should watch the trailer and then watch the film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, because it's awesome. I haven't watched the movie yet. The trailer's awesome. The plot's deep, and I'm sure it'll get thicker and thicker. I'm going to have to watch this, but I just got so fascinated when I saw this. I wanted to share it with you guys while it was fresh on my mind, because somebody brought up in a comment a while ago that this film, Heath, I thought his last film was when he played the Joker in Batman. And there's some weird occult numerology scenes in that as well. Go back to Sandy Hook and some of the bizarre connections there. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast. The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Watch the trailer on YouTube Movies, then watch the film. And let me give you a quick excerpt from the storyline here. Heath Ledger, Christopher Plummer, Andrew Garfield, Lily Cole, Vern Troyer, and Tom Waits star in the film. Ledger's death, this is where it gets interesting, 1/3 of the way through filming. He died 1/3 of the way through. Think about it for a minute. If you follow the Lucifer story, 1/3 of the angels followed Lucifer. That number 3 is very symbolic. Well, guess what? Ledger passed away 1/3 of the way through the film. Makes you wonder what, when people like, was it Bob Dylan that came out, or who was, maybe it wasn't Bob Dylan. Who came out? How's my sound, guys? Who's the guy that came out on 60 Minutes and said he sold his soul to the prince of this world? Said the big man, the man in charge. Want to make sure I'm right here. I get schooled in the comment section here every day, folks. So for those of you that haven't been to a live show yet, you should definitely hit that alert button so you will be emailed, or if you have it connected to your phone, it'll show you when I'm doing a live podcast. Yep, it was Bob. Okay, Bob Dylan came out and said, you know, the prince of this world. You guys, you can go all the way back, and whether you want to read the Sumerian stuff, whether you want to read the Greek mythos, whether you want to read the Roman mythos, the Hebrew scriptures, there's so many different stories, but there's many of the same underlying themes I've noticed, which is very fascinating in my opinion. But let me read to you. Let's go back. Hold on. I got to change this. I'm still listening to this Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack, and I got some there's Elvis Presley on this soundtrack, which is awesome. Suspicious Minds. Memory is what it's called. Memory. All right. No? Is it Suspicious Minds? I don't know. All right. We're going to the next one, though. Here we go. Stand by. All right. We're good. Got to stay in the zone. So he dies. Heath Ledger dies 1/3 of the way through the film. And then his role was recast with Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell. Now let's get into what it's about. I had notes here. I had notes. So I already told you, essentially, he ends up selling his soul, or not his soul. He sells his daughter's soul to the devil, and he tries to get it back. And the strange thing is the time of his death, and then what I just went over with you, the 1/3 of the angels supposedly fall from heaven with Lucifer. Now, let's go through a little bit of this article. Let me share with you a little bit of this article from Robert Stanley's website. Can't wait to have him on the show and go into it in more detail. But the name Paddock is supposed to have a reference to the toad. So then he gets into these witches and the Renaissance and Shakespeare. And during the Renaissance, it was believed that Satan sent witches, malicious spirits, to help carry out evil deeds. familiars, etc. And sometimes they would come in animal form. And then a familiar witch takes form as a cat called the Gray Malkin, and the second witch takes form as a toad. And I was trying to find out where exactly he said the name. And then his brother was saying, well, I hope that the brother of Paddock said, I hope that they find a tumor in his head or something, because something drove him into the pit of hell. Now, there's also information on the webs that are saying that his brother is connected to some crisis actor agency. So maybe that's just a part of the script. I haven't done enough information to get into that more yet either. So doing as much as I can here where I think I need to at the time. And for those of you out there that have been able to confirm, is his brother connected to a crisis actor or an organization that does these crisis events? That would, I think, open up a whole other can of worms. But what he is saying there, then connecting that to the name, then connecting that to the possibility of they did an autopsy. They didn't find any tumors or abnormalities. So, watching films like Men in Black, where that insect comes down, takes over somebody's body, the Body Snatchers. I told you the film, or not the film, but the TV show 404, you should watch it. I think it's a Hulu original. They have different series. It's kind of like X-Files. The one that I watched last night, where these sylphs start coming through the TV screen. They look like archons that are described. These worm-looking things are coming through the screen, and you can't see them unless you have a specific pair of glasses on that takes the 3D, puts it back into 2D. And if you don't have the glasses on, you can't see it at all. And these people are watching these films in 3D, and they're getting their brains sucked out by these archon parasites. It's crazy. And also, he's wearing that shirt that says "Conform," that's got "They Live" alien on it. When Rodney Piper puts on the glasses, "They Live," and you see the aliens in there. So Paddock is also an archaic English word for a frog or a toad, according to Mr. Stanley and the research that he's done. So how does that apply to what we're talking about? Well, if Paddock does refer to the toad, if you read something from Shakespeare during the Renaissance, one of the witches that is sent out from Satan is a toad. And these are also evil spirits in Shakespeare's play Macbeth. So that's interesting. And then in an X-Files episode, there is the satanic substitute teacher with frog eyes. Man, I'm telling you, Robert he connected some great dots here. And then he says, who's the evil entity responsible for the mass murder in front of the Luxor? And why in front of the Luxor? Well, is it for the angel god Lucifer, Enki, Loki, Ea, Ptah, Sin, etc.? That is that's what he's putting together. That's the information that he feels is the truth. And I mean, he's putting a lot of stuff to back it up there too. I'm going to be as agnostic as possible and get as much information to the table as possible. And I'm sure there's more reasons than we know about for these sacrifices and stuff. It reminds me of Cabin in the Woods film, where there's this cabin in the woods and you think it's just going to be a typical horror story, horror movie. And then all of a sudden you find out what's really under the cabin of the woods and why they have these blood sacrifices to keep order so this monster doesn't eat the world and everybody dies. And then they've got all these secret agencies and alphabet agencies connected to it. It's saying a lot in a fiction film. It is saying a lot in a fiction film. So what I am wondering, it's also interesting because remember the other day I opened up that Book of the Gods, and the first god that I opened up was Ptah. And I also brought up Loki just a moment ago, Enki, Lucifer. If they are all one and of the same, are we in their matrix? I mean, is this the matrix that we're in right now? And these 27-year cycles oftentimes, which can last, 27 to 29 and a half years, the return of Saturn, Saturn, the creator of this matrix that we're in, that the Gnostics talked about being Yaldabaoth as well. Is that what's going down? I mean, is this the simulation? Was there a non-biological entity created so powerful that it's kind of like when when I see a mosquito and I just whack it, it's gone, goodbye. Is that how it sees us? And has it finally started to kind of break out of that a little bit and have more compassion on us, even though we're just mosquitoes and cockroaches maybe to this thing, to who it is, to this, this God, this angel, this entity that seems to control. It's frightening, folks. I'm going to share a story with you that really, ooh, man, it's spooky thinking about. When I lived in this house in Washington, it was very haunted. There was very dense negative energy, and I ended up picking up a 1913 copy of the Lesser Keys of Solomon by Mathers and Crowley on eBay. It was a used copy. Picked it up. It made the energy even lower, even denser. And one night I had this very dark trip where I realized I was at a nexus point where I was about to be able to go and like tap into anything I wanted, just instant download. And I ended up going on this other path. Like I ended up going on a very dark, deep trip. And I realized that this world that we're in, at least that point, that dimension, that time, became very dark. The energy levels, I was watching TV, the same 500 channels with nothing on. Every channel that I turned it to, whether it was a commercial, whether it was a TV show, whether it was a comedy, it was, there was a late night comedy, whether it was a talk show, every single channel that I turned it to, it had some dark underlying theme of death. It was just wicked. And I had to, I turned the TV off. I went outside, and it was one of the, I heard something that night too. I've shared this with a few close friends, but it literally sounded, and my wife heard it too. It wasn't just me. So we heard the exact same thing. It sounded like a demon. It literally was like, roar! And just thinking about it, the hair just stands up on the back of my neck. And it was frightening. And it made me wonder, this system that we're in, this reality matrix that we're in, is it really that dark? Is that why we see so much around the world, in the media at least, that's portrayed? And those out there that are less fortunate, that are in these war zones, these sacrificial battle zones where the generals will gather in their masses, just like witches at black masses. These minds will plot destruction and disconstruction. And also, how do they profit? Financially. They financially profit big time, big business. What else is profiting? Let's get into some of the darker aspects of magic. You can create sylphs without even knowing it. These energy points that you don't see with the physical eyes unless you're very in tune with your third eye. And these things can literally control people behind the scenes without them knowing it. They can destroy people. They suck the energy out of people. When corporations are created, egregores are created, when businesses are created, when you start a radio program and it grows within a couple of years to 150,000 or more subscribers. Well, I mean, that creates its own energies. And many of these gods that are talked about through the history books, how many of them are gods? How many of them are energies that were created, are thought forms, are manifestations of ourselves, are manifestations of thought, are creations of humans' minds? What if the Elohim is us? What if that was us? What if we are doing this to ourselves? What if this energy that was created, this non-biological intelligence that has so many more, so much more as far as a form of a medium right now compared to what we are currently experiencing in this conscious archetype, maybe not subconscious levels. Because when you have astral projection experiences and out-of-body experiences, then you're a lot more than your physical body. But getting to that point is very difficult at times. Although sometimes it can be like riding a bike. Once you get to it, you can keep doing it. You just have to exercise. Is it going to feed off of us? And how long will it feed off of us? What happens if we find a way out? I mean, what does that actually mean? Do you ever ask yourself these questions, or you just say, I want out of here? I ask myself, what is it like on the next side? How many other sides are there? I am going to do some extensive research into the Zohar, into the Kabbalah. Now, I've researched it in different aspects via Franz Barden's approach to the Kabbalah. And I've done a little bit of research on the tree of life and the connection points, the nexus points, and the different matrices and dimensions, etc. Yet I haven't done research into the Zohar. So I am going to research that extensively, especially after talking to Alexander yesterday, which I like Alexander. He's a good guy. He's very intelligent, and we just have different opinions on many things. And that's a good thing. If it's good to have conversations with people that don't agree with you. Iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel, titanium alloy sharpens titanium alloy. And there goes my alarm. I'm going to have to go here in a minute because I have a phone call to make. I need to get a hold of Jacob Israel. Speaking of Alexander from Israel, I'm going to be talking to Jacob Israel here in just a moment. And he's going to be coming on this show talking about some of the signs in the heavens that he sees and some of his information that he has compiled over the years as well. So, in closing, oh, Laura, you received your book yesterday. That's awesome. Welcome to the trip. It's going to be a bumpy ride, and you'll see things and experiencing, the experiences you will have if you practice what he shows and lays out for you. It's like something out of a science fiction book meets Dungeons and Dragons, because you'll be a wizard, or you'll be you'll be a wizard or a witch. You can be a good witch or a bad witch. It's up to you. There's plenty of good witches out there. I like witches. They're fun to hang out with. They're a little bit different. So, and once again, you've got, which path do you choose? There's people out there that are of that kin and they don't even realize it. They are literally born as what you might classify as a witch or a wizard just because they think things and it manifests. They don't do specific rituals and dogmatic practices and sacrifices. No, they just think things and it happens. They can see into the future naturally. They can see into people's minds and hear what people are thinking sometimes naturally. Mutant style. It's incredible. And I'm sure there's many of you listening that have experiences like that on a regular basis. There's an abnormally high amount of people with Rh negative blood that listen to Leak Project. There's an abnormally high amount of people that listen to Leak Project that have very high IQ levels. So I think that's awesome. And I get schooled every single day from you guys. So thank you for being here. Have a beautiful day. Question everything. Be excellent to each other. And I will be on here later. So talk to you soon. Be the change you want to see. Blade Runner 2049. Or maybe he didn't even know. Maybe he was actually the sacrificial lamb without even realizing it before birth. I'm sure you've heard of the 27 Club. Many people that were at the peak of their entertainment career died at the age of 27. And a lot of people around the age of 27. Did you know that there is a cycle of Saturn, which is approximately 27 years old? Bless your soul, Heath Ledger. There's a lot of mysticism and the representation of the Joker, the trickster, the trickster in the, if you get into Norway and some of the, I should say more of the Viking type era out there, the different gods, Enki, Loki was the trickster god. Loki is the Joker, actually might be 29.5 years, but there is a 27-year time frame that it takes for Saturn to do a full orbit. So let's say you were born 70 years ago. Well, Saturn during that 70 years over twice, it will have gotten to the point of when you were born. So the same location. So that's the return of Saturn. I'll talk to Heidi about this later. Heidi Vandenberg. She's very detailed in like her Vedic stuff that she does. But really, it's Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Spare Leak Project. How the heck are you? Just have to hit a couple more buttons here before we get started. Appreciate you joining me this quick edition. Your time is valuable. As a matter of fact, it's priceless. Just let me hit a button here real quick. All right, rock and roll. Was there a deal made with the devil in Heath Ledger's last film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus? Or was it done long before? Fascinating when you look at some of these people that died at the age of 27, at the peak of their career. Heath Ledger just came off of a blockbuster film, Batman, incredible, mind-blowing. He played the Joker better than even Jack Nicholson, and Jack Nicholson did an amazing job playing the Joker. Now, that's just my opinion, but he played it almost too well. And the Joker, as you can see behind me in the Suicide Squad, there's a lot of mysticism and, yeah, bless his soul.